Superman, the symbol of hope, the blueprint, the one who started it all. It's almost impossible to talk about superheroes without acknowledging the red cape in the room, Superman. Superman isn't just a character, he's a genre-defining legend. He's the reason your favorite hero even exists. But with all the reverence and admiration, there's also this growing whisper in the superhero community. A whisper that says, maybe Superman hasn't aged well. Maybe perfection isn't as compelling as it used to be. That's why writers are taking Superman as a character and creating something else, something different, something more controversial, versions that to some are just Superman copies and to others better Superman. But after careful retrospection, I've noticed that despite carrying the same trope of being a Superman copy, the show that best blends the two ideologies together for me is...
oh my god.
It's Invincible. And to me, I think Invincible perfected Superman. Superman is often seen as the gold standard of superheroes. Born as Kal-El, the last son of Krypton, and raised as Clark Kent in Smallville, his story is steeped in tragedy and hope. He represents the best in all of us. He's the guy with all the powers to bring humanity to his knees, but instead he tries to be the example of what a human should be. As a superhero, his achievements are legendary, saving planets, defeating godlike villains, and holding together the moral spine of the Justice League. He's the ultimate big brother of the superhero world, and easily a lot of people's favorite superhero, including mine. But the way I see it, or how obvious it is, when you're always the strongest, the fastest, and the most virtuous, something odd happens. You stop being someone people can relate to and start becoming someone we can only admire from a distance. Now, this video isn't to hate on everything Superman stands for, but more or less to question some things and see how Invincible uses certain elements of Superman to create something a bit different that in some ways elevates the story of Invincible. Superman's biggest flaw for me isn't kryptonite, although yeah, technically it is. But what has always been Superman's biggest flaw to me is narrative weight. When a character has godlike powers and near-perfect morals, it becomes incredibly difficult to place them in meaningful conflict. When everything is solved because Superman is Superman, perfect, flawless, it gets predictable. Now, don't get me wrong, despite Superman being portrayed as a perfectionist, most writers have still been able to write creative stories and plotlines for him. Stories that question his godlike strength and morality. And yeah, that's cool and all, but they don't always answer the deeper questions. It's often resolved because Superman is good, never really asking why he's good. Why does he choose to hold back? What motivates him as a character? Yes, you could say it's because he was raised by kind, loving parents, but a lot of people are raised like that and turn out evil, and a lot of people are raised wrong and still turn out good. So what makes Superman want to be Superman? Why does being Superman equal being perfect? Writers constantly walk a tightrope when writing Superman. Make him too weak, fans riot. Make him too strong, there's no story. We have seen so many versions of Superman struggle with just being Superman because there is no clear direction to grow from perfection. And this isn't a knock against Superman himself, it's a knock against the creative box he's been trapped in. You can only have so many stories about an unstoppable man facing unstoppable odds before it starts to feel like deja vu. Oftentimes when Superman does face unstoppable odds, writers just pull out all reliable, make Superman stronger, give him a sudden power boost, and voila, the evil is gone, Superman wins again, which works most of the time because he is extremely strong, but sometimes he feels like an asshole. Now imagine if Superman's ideals weren't rooted in earthly love and values but in domination. Omniman is pretty much the answer to that question. He looks like Superman, he flies like Superman, he has the mustache of a dad who probably grills every Saturday, but he's not here to save Earth. He's here to prepare it for conquest. In one episode, just one, Omni-Man dismantles decades of heroic tradition. He isn't the father you look up to, he's the terrifying reality of unchecked power. He shows us what Superman could have been if Clark Kent never existed. And here's where it gets deep. Invincible at its core isn't about Omni-Man, it is far from it. It's about Mark Grayson, a teenage boy who inherited the burden of greatness without the luxury of guardians. Mark is what Superman could have been if he had to earn everything. His strength, the trust, the title. Invincible gets knocked down, he loses people, he questions everything, and yet he keeps standing up. Not because he's invincible, and that is obvious, not because he's invincible, but because he wants to do good, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Yes, Superman has seen his fair share of vulnerability as a superhero. He's lost people too, he's questioned his strength, but he never hits as hard as he does for Invincible. Most of the time, Superman's hardship aren't due to his powers or direct involvement, Sometimes it's from things he just can't control. But in Invincible, that trauma is right in your face. The show highlights Mark Grayson's incompetence. If you're not strong enough, people die. If you're not fast enough, you won't arrive in time to save anyone. If you don't keep your powers in check or form bonds with people, you lose yourself. And if you lose yourself, you become a monster. I'm not saying Superman never deals with these issues, but in Invincible, they don't just tell you, they show you. But here's a sharp contrast for that. When Superman punches a villain through a building, we usually cut away. It's clean, sanitized, heroic. But when Mark gets punched through a building, we see it, we feel it, civilians die, trauma lingers, the world changes. Invincible forces its characters and its audience to confront what superpowered beings would really mean in a world. It doesn't flinch, and that intensity gives the story actual consequences. Every choice matters, every mistake has fallout, and I tried emphasizing this in my Why Invincible is the most realistic superhero ever video. You can check it out if you want. But long story short, being as invulnerable and powered as Superman or his archetype like Invincible isn't as simple as it seems. Everything you do, if not controlled, is catastrophic. Superman is emphasized that even if that's the case, he's perfect enough to avoid hurting people. And yeah, he really does. But Invincible shows that isn't always the case. Just look at the fight between Omniman and Invincible. Omniman may have caused the chaos, but he used Invincible as a tool. Punching Mark through a building caused it to collapse. People die. Omniman smashing him through a train. It's not even hurting Mark, but definitely hurting everyone else. To be fair, Man of Steel by Zack Snyder touched on this too. It really went out of its way to show what it feels like for beings with strength beyond comprehension to fight. It's the reason Batman wanted to prove Superman just ain't shit, that he could be brought down, and honestly, that was brilliance of Snyder. But doing that is why people hated his take on Superman so much, which still makes sense because comic Superman is not like that. He drifts away from realism at times, but Invincible finds a balance between both worlds, being fantastic as a superhero like Superman is supposed to be, and realistic as the world expects superheroes to be. Another thing I love to tackle is the planet's invasion of both the Kryptonians and the Viltrumites. In DC, we have seen the Earth being threatened by the Kryptonians, specifically Zod and his crew, and though I haven't read a comic about this, the Man of Steel movie would be a good blueprint for it, as the intentions in this movie was clear. It was to turn Earth to a new Krypton. Not a bad idea, but you're telling me that your entire species is near extinction and you found this new planet filled with beings that are nearly biologically identical to yours, and your only idea is to kill them off and create a new world with the remaining Kryptonians you have. I mean, is that really necessary? Now compare that to the looming shadow of the Viltrum Empire. Omniman's betrayal is only the start. The invasion is not a threat of war, it's a cultural colonization. The Viltrumites don't want to destroy Earth, they want to absorb it, control it, shape it in their image, and use their extremely compatible biology to revive their dying species. That slow burning dread is more potent than any single punch. It's the weight of inevitability, and it raises the stakes in a way DC rarely dares to. The Viltrumites slowly want to take over the planet. They urge Mark Grayson to prepare it for their arrival and promise to make proper use of the resources of this planet to better it. And when Mark refuses, well, we know what happens. And that's another difference. Just because Mark has his powers and strength, he's only as powerful as he needs to be on Earth, but barely average compared to other Viltrumites. And that's what motivates him to actually get stronger. There's a need and urgency for it. Superman, on the other hand, is mostly portrayed as not having this problem. He may be outmatched, but he still wins against more experienced combatants of Krypton with his farm boy skills.
Right.
Let's be honest, audiences have changed. We crave new ones. We relate to flawed characters. We want heroes who don't just win, but learn. I think that's why people gravitate a lot more to Batman as a character than they do to Superman. Superman has always been a symbol, but Invincible makes that symbol feel earned. It deconstructs the myth without disrespecting it. The overall issue with Superman is being just nearly untouchable. Well, except to remove kryptonite, then he's a literal punching bag. But don't get me wrong, there are characters that put up a good fight with Superman, and the resolution for this is some power amp for Superman. They never show how he grows as a character from this. Instead, a sun dip and Superman can be brought back to life if dead or made stronger if weak. Invincible, although a wrong choice of name for someone who can survive a fight without losing his goggles and some teeth, shows that although he has all his powers and invulnerability, he can be bypassed and put some kind of check on Invincible's powers. A power that doesn't need a crystal to be weakened but can feel genuine pain by fighting and grows from that. Mark Grayson isn't perfect. We care for the character because he's not. because he keeps trying, because he bleeds, because he cries, because he fails and still chooses to protect the world despite that. Look, this video isn't to hate on Superman's character. To be honest with you, Superman is amongst my top 5 favorite superheroes. Superman isn't a terrible superhero, or is he terribly written. That's how the writers want the character to be, and that's what he represents. But maybe, just maybe, Invincible shows us a better way to tell stories about godlike powers and burden of using it right that Superman just doesn't. But you don't always have to agree with what I say, and maybe you have your own take on it. So let me know down in the comments what you think about all this. And while you're down there, you could also like and subscribe to help grow the channel and stay updated for new uploads. Well, that's it for me on this video. Until the next one, I'm out.